I wish my girlfriend was a cockroach named Ogtha. Ever since I was a teenager, I've had very intense fantasies about sleeping with a giant roach. It started in ninth or 10th grade when we read The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. As I started to think more and more about the roach creature that the character had become, I started to imagine what it would be like if a woman turned into a roach instead. I found this idea very arousing. I would not be repulsed or frightened of her as the characters in the story are. I would take care of her. Then my thoughts about the character started getting more intimate. Eventually, I sort of dropped the bit about her having been a human woman first, and I kind of imagined this fictionalized roach species. They're giant roaches, the size of a person, and they have complete intelligence. Over time, I kind of conjured up an imaginary friend of sorts. She was one of these roaches, and her name was Ogtha. I would fantasize about her often. Whenever I pleasured myself, I'd be imagining elaborate scenarios of me and Ogtha making love. When I started sleeping with actual women, I found I could not perform if I wasn't thinking of Ogtha. So now basically any time I make love to a woman, I'm pretending that she's actually Ogtha. Not just thinking about Ogtha, I concentrate intently to visualize that I am actually doing Ogtha. I don't want to think about the girl at all. There is only Ogtha. Of course, this lovemaking can never be as exciting as my fully imaginary sessions with Ogtha. There are things that her multiple appendages and antennae allow for that a human woman can never match. So anyways, I've been in a relationship with my girlfriend for about a year. About 3 or 4 times, I've tried to sleep with her without pretending she's Ogtha, but I just can't do it. So essentially, every time we make love, I'm imagining she is Ogtha. I finally confided this to her the other day, and I was blown away by her reaction. I thought she might take it a bit badly at first, but that she'd get used to it. No, I've never seen such a look of disgust before. Outraged is not an understatement. She's not even returning my texts now. I'm afraid she's actually going to break up with me, and also that she's going to tell people about Ogtha. I don't know how I'll face anyone. This is going to sound silly, but I also feel guilty about feeling shame. As if Ogtha will be saddened by this, even though I know she's imaginary. I just don't know what to do at this point. Just to be clear, this original poster is worried that people will find out about his fantasy cockroach girlfriend, and so he posted on Reddit about his fantasy cockroach girlfriend? That seems a bit self-defeating. As for what OP should do, it seems a bit obvious that professional help is needed at this point. I'm not even judging the fact that he likes bugs. I mean, I am, but that's not the point. This guy has gotten himself into a mental state where he can't be satisfied without this very specific fantasy. No matter what the fantasy is, that's something he needs to address. But that advice is pretty irrelevant, since a whole 5 years passed before he posted the following update. For several years, Ogtha was just an imaginary figure to me, but as time went on, she became a fully sentient being that I fell in love with. Ogtha, to me, is a real creature. She simply lacks a physical body in our world, and her consciousness resides in my mind alongside my own. The users of r/tulpas, a subreddit about intelligent companions imagined into existence, helped me realize there's nothing delusional about this, and that, indeed, it is very possible for such entities to come into being. I do hope that one day the technology will exist to extract Ogtha from my mind and install her into an artificial physical body. But we're satisfied with our current relationship. I love Ogtha, and she loves me. Some time ago, I married her. Now, from a strictly legal sense, no, I'm not married per se, but for me and Ogtha, we consider our relationship to be a marriage. I'm devoted to her and her to me. I revealed this to my coworkers, and it did not go well. But I thought my parents had a right to know. Last evening, I revealed to them everything about Ogtha, and told them we were married. I even allowed Ogtha to speak to them through me, so that she could finally meet my parents after only seeing them from afar. I knew my parents would find it unusual at first, but I thought they would come to understand and be happy for me. However, I fear they think me deranged. My mother actually cried, and not tears of happiness as I expected. They even encouraged me to seek counseling. I explained to them that what I'm experiencing is real, and encouraged them to read through the Tulpa subreddit. It's created a very bad situation for me, and now I fear my relationship with my parents is quite ruined. They keep insisting I seek counseling, and are threatening that if I don't, they'll no longer assist me with my student loans, and I'll not be welcome at Thanksgiving. I feel they're overreacting, but at the same time, I wish I had just kept my marriage a secret. I do consider it now to be a huge mistake to have been truthful with my parents. They are in some ways traditionalists, and are simply not ready to understand how entities can exist without physical form and share a mind. It breaks my heart, but I wish I had been deceitful with my family. For the record, I will never divorce Ogtha, and with our love, I know I can survive anything, but I wish I had never been truthful with my parents. How does this OP once again assume that people will find this normal after a short grace period? It was weird enough to fantasize about a giant cockroach, but now he's given it a voice and begun sharing a split personality with it? Depending on their politics, accepting that their son was sharing his brain with an imaginary woman was already a tall order. The rest of it is just icing on the cake. I almost want to believe this is fake because it seems impossible that OP expected tears of happiness. Either way, it's probably good that he doesn't want a divorce. Bringing this in front of a judge seems like a great way to get committed. And not allowing OP at Thanksgiving is honestly just practical. If I were his mom, I wouldn't want to have to worry about whether Ogtha is supposed to get her own place at the table. But wait, we're not done yet. Not long after this post, OP decided to tell us more about what happened when his coworkers found out about his marriage. Some of this is repetitive, but it does provide new details on how he and Ogtha make love, as well as how the wedding ceremony went down. You might think of the scene in Blade Runner 2049, where the main character makes love to an escort, but his hologram girlfriend kind of holograms over the body of the actual person so he can pretend he's making love to his hologram. That's what it's like with me and Ogtha, but instead of a hologram, it was just my imagination. In the 5 years that have passed since this topic was posted, I decided to stop fooling myself, and I just committed to the love of Ogtha. Call me deluded, but it's harmless. It makes me happy. I've not had a real girlfriend again since that incident 5 years ago, but occasionally I have had one-night stands via online apps, and on these occasions I always envision the woman is Ogtha, my sensual roach queen. Now I mean no offense to the woman, of course, or even the gentleman, once or twice. The many appendages of Ogtha make translation to human gender almost irrelevant. I just envision they are Ogtha, and no, I have never confided to them about it. I learned my lesson. The thing about it, though, is that I became so in love with my Ogtha that I married her. I even did a little ceremony in my living room. I recited my own vows, and she recited hers. I even went on a honeymoon, which technically you could say was a solo vacation to New Orleans for a week. But in my mind, Ogtha was with me the entire time. In my mind, I think of her as my wife. Now here's where I messed up. I got so used to thinking of her as my wife in my head that a few months ago at work I nonchalantly said my wife in some innocuous sentence. I think it was something like, "Oh yeah, me and my wife love that show," in regards to Chopped. So now everyone was asking me about my wife, because they had never heard I was married, or even dating anyone. Everyone kept pestering me, wanting to know about her, wanting to see pictures. I became full of panic. I did the one thing I swore I would never do again. I talked to other people about Ogtha in real life. We were at a team lunch, and I just let it all spill out. I told them about how I became enamored as a teenager with a Franz Kafka story, how my fantasy evolved into an actual imaginary entity with a personality, and how I slowly began to grow in love with her. What started as a mere physical attraction to giant roaches blossomed into a whirlwind romance, so that she became the love of my life, even though her existence was in my own mind. At first they thought I was making a creepy joke, but I convinced them I was telling the truth. Well, they were afraid and disgusted. I've been a pariah at work ever since. Everybody steers clear of me. We used to have a good social life. Now people only speak to me for work-related reasons. Even working virtually now, nobody sends me a Slack message unless it's about work. I even heard a rumor that people went to HR, but they were of course told nothing could be done. I've lost my good work friends because of this, and it's indeed jeopardizing my career because my bosses think I'm insane. I've ruined my friendships and future career prospects due to my honesty. I'm thinking of starting to look for a new job, although it's difficult in the current environment. I can start fresh elsewhere, though. No matter what, I'll be staying with my wife, Ogtha. For me, it is Ogtha forever. If you must know, I do hope that even if I'm an old man, that one day the technology is invented to extract the Ogtha personality from my mind and implant it into a real external body, either of a genetically engineered or mechanical nature. Then me and Ogtha can experience genuine physical connection. But if she must remain with me, that's fine. Her love keeps me warm on the coldest of nights. I could have gone all day without thinking about how Ogtha keeps you warm. But here we are. I don't even want to comment on this anymore. Let's move on to something less insane. I dated my own sister for 2 whole years. I've been working remotely for about a year and a half now, so naturally I have extra free time to do what I want during the week. During the time I wasn't working due to COVID, I made a secret Twitter account. I wanted this to be separate from my real life, so I never planned on showing my face, which seemed pretty reasonable at the time. After a week or so of posting and flirting with various accounts, I got added to a group chat with about 12 other people. The group chat was basically just a place where we all sent revealing photos back and forth and asked each other for opinions. It was pretty fun, to be honest. I can't lie, having a basically anonymous group of people praising your body daily is pretty nice. After a few lewd pictures were exchanged, I noticed a new message notification. Upon checking it, I noticed it was from a girl in the group, Bella. She sent me a pic with my name written across her chest, and I think I kind of fell in love with her after that. We started talking pretty friendly at first, but quickly we were sending suggestive texts and sending videos to one another. This became routine for about a month, and I think we were both sort of falling for each other. We both were still active on Twitter and talking to other people, but at least from my perspective, she was the only one who was really enjoyable to talk to. She enjoyed the same games as me, and we watched the same shows. She was obsessed with plants and the color pink, and she had this innocence about her that was captivating. She was obviously far from innocent, but something about her made the kinks disappear into the background. Flash forward to May 2022. Me and Bella have been basically e-dating for 2 years at this point. My family planned a vacation since we'd all been vaxxed and boosted, and we hadn't all been together in the same place for way too long, as my mother liked to put it. My parents decided to rent an RV and take a road trip to Niagara Falls, picking up me and my siblings on the way, since we'd all moved out of our hometown and state. I was first on the list. After they picked me up, we headed to my sister Sarah's house to pick her up. It was going to be about 3 hours before we got there, so I decided to go in the back and scroll Twitter. I opened a message from Bella where she let me know she was going on vacation and might not have good service during the drive. I thought this was perfect timing, since I was also going to be without service at some points during the trip, so I let her know the same. We exchanged a fair amount of pics to keep each other busy with while we were unavailable, and I closed my eyes and decided to nap the rest of the way. After I woke up, we reached my sister's condo and decided to go inside for a quick break from driving. We went inside, and after the greetings were all out of the way, I had to use the bathroom. I figured I could also sneak in a little self-pleasure session to send to Bella. But when I walked into the bathroom, I couldn't believe it. I had seen this bathroom before. So many times, in fact, it felt like I'd been there before. But that couldn't be possible. I tried to convince myself it was just a coincidence, but I decided to check back in my photos to see if my suspicions were true. Turns out, yes, they were. I knew this bathroom because I had seen it before. I had hundreds of pictures with the same shower curtain and hand towels in the background. I still couldn't bring myself to believe that the pics I'd been thirsting after were my sister. So when I came back out, I asked if she had a roommate. That's definitely what's happening here. I'm texting my sister's roommate. But she said no, she lives alone. My blood went cold, and I didn't know what else to think. I couldn't believe that this was truly my sister, the sweet little girl who cried when I stepped on a frog one time. She never even had boyfriends growing up. How could her mind be so filthy? I couldn't just tell her right before we were about to spend a week on the road together. We proceeded to go back to the RV, and once in my bunk, I opened Twitter again and analyzed the most recent pictures, trying to find something identifiable to prove this isn't really my sister. I know I shouldn't have gone back to her account, but I had to know. Except I didn't have to, because when I went to our messages, there was a new picture waiting for me. I hesitated before opening it. To my surprise, it was a photo of her completely undressed in her bunk on the RV. I was glad I told her about my trip, because I couldn't respond. I could barely move. It didn't feel real. I decided to not continue our conversations at that point. I didn't block her or even really give her an explanation, just let the whole vacation excuse run on until she eventually stopped trying. I still use the Twitter account, but am no longer very active in group chats. It's been a few months, and I still don't think I'm going to tell her. I'm already traumatized enough. She doesn't deserve to feel that as well. Although sometimes I do wonder what her reaction would have been. Would she have been horrified like I was, or would she have just accepted it? Let's all hope for the sake of both OP and his sister that she would not have just accepted it. Obviously, you need to move on, but treating it like no big deal would actually be a huge red flag. For my 2 cents, telling her is the worst possible idea. It's going to be hard enough for OP to normalize their relationship again. There really is no need to put that pressure on a second person. If it's been months, then she's probably moved on by now. Besides, these two were just trading pictures online. Even if they felt like they had a connection, which I guess they sort of did, that's not at all an impossible relationship to get over quickly. But maybe the viewers disagree. Would you tell her if you were this OP? Leave us a comment below letting us know what you'd do. Clingy boyfriend thinks his terminal illness is more important than my road trip. Me and some friends went on a road trip vacation for a few days and just came back yesterday. It was originally my idea and was meant to be a girls' trip. But then we decided to include our significant others as well and make it a full party weekend. This vacation was a long time planning, and I was really looking forward to it, as were the others. A few weeks ago, my boyfriend said he doesn't really want to go. I tried to convince him otherwise because our hotel and activities were already booked, but he wouldn't budge and said that some activities offered free cancellation. He said he'd pay for any that don't. Okay, his choice, but I was still planning to go with my friends. My boyfriend, however, started saying that I shouldn't go either and should stay with him for support so he isn't alone. I told him that I've really been looking forward to this trip. If he's not going, that's fine, but I still want to. We had a bit of an argument over this, and I ended up going. I had a great time. Since I've come back, though, my boyfriend's been giving me the cold shoulder. So am I the jerk for going on the trip without him? It sounds on the surface like this OP isn't the jerk at all. What a terrible boyfriend to demand she stay home just because he doesn't feel like being alone, right? Well, when someone asked why the boyfriend cared so much about having her support, OP offered the following clarification. He's been diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma. However, it's not advanced, and he starts chemo next week, so the trip didn't overlap with it anyway. He's been worried about the whole situation, and I've tried to help him, but a lot of his family live near us too, so he has support from them. Woof, that's a pretty big detail to leave out. It's good that OP's boyfriend has other support, since he clearly doesn't have hers when he needs it most. It comes as no surprise that a later update revealed OP and her boyfriend to have broken up. Thank goodness. After 3 posts about terrible relationships, this is the first one with a truly happy ending. Click on one of the videos you see on the screen now, or a Karen will sue you.